case of this. So it's, as long as it's not visible, it's not an issue.
Are any of those panels going to be mounted on top of the structures that are up on top of the building? I think they have like a gazebo or something up there.
Yeah, they do have a,
Atrium.
yeah, an atrium up there. And it's my understanding that they're not placed on top of that. But the case, like the file, shows all the detail in it.
It doesn't seem like from the drawings that we received that there's anything that would compromise the roof structurally. That it looks like the engineers took care of that pretty carefully.
Yeah, that's my belief too.
But I have another question. Does it mean then that if there are improvements made to a building that can't be seen, what's the precedent about that?
A lot of times you won't see roofs come before us. And so since I've been doing this, I've not gone back with the building department because they're the ones that issue the permits and you have to have a permit for a roof. So I've not gone back with them and had a discussion on how to handle that. But I would say normally that's been the case, that you wouldn't have to. There are getting to be so many different scenarios of things you can do to buildings. I like to take the rather safe than sorry approach and bring it to you to discuss it. So that's what I prefer to do, as long as they make it known what they're doing. And so if there are certain scenarios that we want to make sure with the building department, we can clarify that with them. But for roofs, we haven't been getting the information. The applicant is, Nisha and Mike Musico, and they're, she's on our board and different things. So yes, so I don't know if she thought, well, we'll just run it by her, or what the scenario was, or if the building department told them they needed that before they went. I think she was being safe rather than sorry also.
I think this might be a little different situation if the panels were visible from the street.
Right.
For example, on the peak of a roof or something.
Right. Yeah, I was told that there is no visible panels
Right.
from the street level.
All right. Someone like to make a motion?
Motion to approve solar panels on 408 West Main.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There being none, then the motion is carried. Thank you. Okay. Receive a report, hold a discussion, and take action on a request to modify the facade at 318 West Main, case number 2022-014H. Ms. Dow?
So this is the former book rack that historically was J.C. Penney, and you can see the transom windows across the top are, somewhat of a different configuration than just straight across there. But that's the historic photo. This is what it looks like now. They have drawn in where they would like to put the windows, so that helps you visualize what it is. To back up, this case came before you when they were removing the metal, and so the plan was see what's under there and then come back before you to determine how they can proceed. And so in the meantime, that changed ownership. And, I have to think that I didn't properly notify the owner, and so he's not in attendance. But the transoms across there would be in glass and reconstructed, framed in hardy board. And that's a drawing of what it would look like. He's also proposing to paint it, the trim in black or Noor. And then the Villa Gray, which was one of the colors on the historic palette that we brought forward. They have chosen that for all the main part of the building. And then he's also requested to place black granite over the bottom where it's got the green tile. That's his colors. If you will look on the side entrance, that was shown because at the park side, Heritage Park, he's requested to put a side door in there for loading and unloading. And that's shown on the picture on the left. It's shown on the right side where it's got the two little doors swinging open and then a sidewalk there. He would have lofts upstairs and retail downstairs. And this is a picture of the doors that he is requesting to be able to add there. That just summarizes that he purchased the building. Summarizing what we've already discussed. And then he wants vinyl window lettering on 3 different areas on the front windows. 8 inches tall and 12 inches tall in the center. And if you have any questions or want to do this in pieces, then we can address it however you wish to. And I'm sure he would be happy to be here for questions also.
What did they find on the facade when they removed that area that has a tieback on it right now? Were the windows gone, or
William, do you know what they found behind that?
they are gone?
Yeah, there wasn't anything really there. I think they just put
Okay,
sheetrock up, or not sheetrock,
Plywood.
particle board or something,
okay.
to dry it in.
And the bottom of the facade, I think is a green tile right now. Was that original to that building, or was that added later?
Well, it was since the 60s, is best I can tell. Sorry. It's there in the 60s. And so I don't know past that how long it's been there. But the National Register District was created in the 80s. So best we can tell that was there. And there's additional information and guidance in your packet that was that we found in the design guidelines.
I want to talk more about those doors on the side of the building and the sidewalk. So, what staff's doing about that?
Of the park,
The doors to be on the side, west sidewalk on Heritage Park, essentially.
Right.
Why don't they use the back door?
he wanted the side doors for loading and unloading, so he was concerned that the back doors wouldn't have, there are back doors, the double doors, so he was concerned that the angle that he would need and the space he would need wasn't adequate in there.
Who owns that strip?
The city,
The city? Where the proposed sidewalk would go?
yes.
That's part of the park,
Well, that was my issue too. Where's the lot line?
the wall,
The walls line?
basically. And he has a pair of doors in the back that provides him with a 6-foot opening. I would think that would be sufficient for loading and unloading things in and out of the building.
He obviously is not gonna be able to put a truck on the sidewalk.
Right.
I really don't see how it becomes more accessible.
Right. You may want to, well, there's 2 factors. You may want to just wait and let him explain that. Also, there's the design of Heritage Park, and that's upcoming, and we really don't know what any of the details are going to be.
was he asking permission to pour a sidewalk on city property?
Yes.
Yes, so there would have to be paperwork transacted that would allow him to do that.
Would he become responsible then for that sidewalk?
Donna, I think we need to table that portion
Yeah.
and have the
Yeah.
building owner come and talk to us a bit more about the door and the sidewalk. And I think I'd also like to have have the city attorney weigh in on whether you can put a sidewalk on city property as well. And so, for sure, I want to table that part, and I would like more information from the city attorney, and I'd like the owner to come and talk to us about the necessity for that door.
Right.
My biggest concern about that, from my point of view, is that door's gonna be opening into a city park. And we don't know yet what the design of that park looks like. So there could be some interference by having those doors there and that sidewalk. And as far as the facade, I don't know if the green tile removal of the green tile would be an issue or not.
So I don't know that he was planning to remove it. I think he was planning to put
We're gonna
the
cover it with
granite
black
over
granite,
it.
So I'm not sure that is an appropriate way to treat that, especially if that's the original finish on the building.
It does say on here that he was planning to place it over. I want to make sure that I didn't misunderstand that.
He did say cover it.
Over the existing tile.
So I'd have to do some more research myself to see whether or not that's appropriate.
We had a case earlier, way a long time ago, because it was the building that burned, the nail salon, and it had the original blue vitreous tile on
Right.
the bottom. And that was an issue, and we said, no, you cannot change the vitreous tile on the bottom of the facade. I'm assuming that this is essentially the same issue, and probably those buildings were contemporaneous as well. So once again, I'd like to know, why is it aesthetically better to cover up what's existing and perhaps might be original with the granite? I see that it would match his trim, but once again, I'd like to hear a bit more about that.
And if I could make a comment about those green tiles, if you'll look, the green tiles, the majority of the building is different than the green tiles that are on the column to the east. Totally different kind of green tile. The green tile of the column at the bottom of the east is smaller and much older. So we might check with Ronnie Cole and see that could be a newer tile on the majority of that building than we might think,
Right.
since it's two different green tiles.
So you can't really tell, like, the bottom, the kick plate area could have been added later, maybe?
It's possible because it's two different green tiles.
Okay.
Different in size only.
Different in size and
Because
a
on
little
that
bit
other
color.
building,
A little bit
there-
color too.
There were larger blue
Mhm.
tile, and then on the column, there were 1-inch tiles, as I remember.
It just looks like to me like they were trying to match the green tile that was in that column
Right.
when they did that.
Oh, so you would say the green tile on the facade is newer than the green tile on the column?
That's on the bottom of the column.
How would we know which was original, which wasn't?
You would get somebody familiar with it possibly, or get, ask questions to the previous owner and see what he can tell. I
Mr.
think-
Vander might have some
Right.
contemporaneous photographs.
I asked him about that, and so this photograph showing the tile there is really all that we came up with detail.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's about as,
Would it be out of line to table this whole thing and wait until the gentleman can be here to to address these?
No, and I think we can do some more checking into the details too in the meantime. I think that would be a good use of our pause.
According to the documentation on this, the building was originally constructed in 1887, so I seriously doubt that those tiles were
Right.
original to that building. So
Right.
it probably does not matter. So the next question is, should we approve everything but the door and sidewalk to allow him to proceed with his plans to remodel that building?
I don't know that he's in that big of a hurry. He just wanted to get this one approved and out of the way. I think he's waiting till the current tenant is out. And so I think that would give us time to bring it back next time and check.
The entire thing or just part of it?
We could do the entire thing if you want, unless you're ready to approve it.
I think that it would be more expedient to table the whole thing so that we can have the applicant here, because there might be other questions as well. But when you interact with him, you might, I know you
Right,
mentioned that
right.
there's serious concerns about the doors on the site. You might consider an alternative to that.
Right. I like that
Being
approach.
said, can I have a motion to table this item?
I move to table case number 2022-014H, modifications to the facade at 318 West Main.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There being none, then the item is tabled until next meeting. All right. Moving right along. Item E, receive a report, hold a discussion, and take action on the request to add signage at 120 South Burnett, number 104. Item number 2022-16H. Ms. Dow?
This is the new location of Peak Nutrition, and property owner Josh Massey is in attendance today. They want to match the lettering that's next door at the Edward Jones office. And so this, it shows the formed plastic 15-inch high and black stud mounted. So that's a close-up of it. And
Any questions or discussion?
do you have any comments? I know it's pretty straightforward, so if you have any questions, I'm sure he would be happy to answer.
Can I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move approval of the signage for Peak Nutrition.
Have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There being none, the motion's carried. Thank you. Moving right along. Item F. Receive a report, hold a discussion, and take action on the request to add a mural at 120 South Burnett. Item 2022-017H. Ms. Dow?
There we go. So as you can see, this is the side of the building at 120 South Burnett that has already had a mural painted on it. They are proposing another mural and will utilize the same artist. And it's quite the story. I think probably, it was included in your packet, and we will let them give more details because it's much more impressive with them talking about it. These are the features that will be included, and he's got his display boards here as well. The name of the major is Butler, not Barton. That was a mistake. And then again, the features are colorized in that. The design committee met, and at this point, they met last Thursday. They reviewed it and liked the concept and everything. They just didn't have enough information to give formal approval on it. Since then, we've got more information, but they haven't come together, and there may be some more questions that they would have. But that's pretty much the basis of it. You know, this gentleman served with Eisenhower, so it's relevant to the same side of the wall. He was a Tuskegee Airman from Denison, and so I think probably that's a good place to leave it, and then let our guest speak to it, if that's okay.
I know most of you. I'm Josh Massey. I own several buildings downtown and have invested probably $5 million of my money into making downtown beautiful. We were one of the first movers in these multi-million-dollar renovations downtown, for which we've won interior and exterior design awards so far and generally comply with all the board's wishes, come to them sort of hat in hand. December of 2020, thereabouts, I became aware that a Tuskegee Airman was from Denison, and coming from an Air Force family with several family members served in World War II, buried at Arlington, and several who served in Korea. And as an airline pilot for American, this is near and dear to my heart. So working with Racy Guess, we started compiling a team. We found the family members that are local. They were unaware of his service. We also found his son down in Houston. They went through his old Foot Locker and found images of him. And so we were able to, one, tell the family some stories they didn't know, and then come back and have them be part of the curation process. So of the images of Major Butler, they have selected the young airman graduate as the one they want to represent him. They were concerned about a black man on a white background getting washed out the way Eisenhower is produced on the building in question. So they have requested that we do a colored version of this image. That uniform, according to Kurt, who is our military historian on the team, is the same uniform that they use today. So we have accurate color renditions that we can make the uniform appropriate. The P-47 was one of the aircraft he flew. He also flew the more notorious P-51, which gained the Red Tails their fame in the European theater. He, according to his son, preferred the P-47. So in accordance with the family's wishes, we have elected to include the P-47 as the aircraft represented in the model. And this is in fact an aircraft that he flew. Number 39 is an aircraft that he flew. So we will honor that as well. Kurt has traveled to Alabama and done the military research at the archives to figure out what ribbons were appropriate to Mr. Butler. So we have listed in the packet the 8 ribbons that will be on there, and they will be displayed in accordance to military etiquette. So those will all be in the bottom right-hand corner. The bio section is designed to tell the story of how Major Butler, who as of 2020, thanks to Coach Guess, is now in the Denison Hall of Fame as one of our distinguished citizens. So what tied him to Denison? What tied him into the Army Air Corps and ultimately into the Tuskegee Airmen, who are the single best defense squadron that has ever been put to field of any military on the planet. Lost 1 aircraft that they were defending. So it is obviously passion for me to tell this story. His unit squadron is the orange and blue. You see the Griffin on the top left. I talked to the artist this morning, who is a Denison graduate himself and has painted several murals around town. He is honoring all of the appropriate military colors. So the ribbons that you see will be painted in their appropriate colors. The uniform will be painted in the appropriate colors. The aircraft will be in a grayscale where the red tail is the demonstrative piece of that aircraft on the plane. In the bio section, we're going to tell his story, Denison, the military story, and then ultimately what happens afterwards. So the Tuskegee Airmen were instrumental in really 3 things in helping us win the war in the European and in the Pacific theater. They were important to integration on our military service and ultimately in proving that as a black man in America, you can be capable of things that you were previously considered to not be capable of in the civilian side. And then from an aviation standpoint, these are my heroes. These are the guys I'll travel to Oshkosh to listen to speak, because those guys went up over and over again to defend aircraft for people who hated them, and at the same time get requested to defend them because they were that good. So My parents went to the University of Alabama. I spent a lot of time not too far from Tuskegee. These guys are the guys that I went to bed thinking about when I applied to the Air Force Academy. So this is something that means something to me. We've got Brian Hander doing the bio, and he's already put something together. He's also contributing half of the cost. So we have his support. Coach Guess has gotten the NAACP on board and other civic leaders to help pay for some of that as well. And we've got several church leaders in town that really also enjoy it. The Rotary Club has also agreed to commit to part of it. Several of the board members there are past military aviators. We would like to do the bio on a brass plaque so that the lettering is easier to maintain over time. So we'd get the bio approved after the artwork is done with Brian Hander as the curator, and then I would have it professionally made and mounted on the wall.
Mr. Massey, I'm also the child of an Air Force pilot, and I love this project in every single way. So thank you. Thank you, Coach Gibbs. Thank you.
Appreciate the tenacity and the research that you put into it to get the information.
I have to give Coach Guest full credit. I would not have known Kurt otherwise, and each of the people that got involved really brought something to the table. We've been back and forth with the family now for probably 6 months to make sure that their wishes were honored on every stage, and there are several family members in town who are unaware of this project. So we're really excited, and the Mayor and Brian are very interested in getting this done during the sesquicentennial, and it is entirely my fault that it hasn't come before you beforehand. We had hoped to complete the mural this month with Black History Month in February. The artist tells me that if we got approval today, he would be here next week and would have it finished by the end of the month. So I realize that we're kind of out of lockstep on the order of operation, and I unfortunately had a death in the family last week, so I could not attend Thursday's meeting in person. But it's my understanding from Donna that if we get y'all's blessing at this point, that they can approve via email retroactively. If they have any additional questions, I'm available to answer.
So who wouldn't like this idea? But I have a procedural question, and that is the design committee, Donna, do they, I honestly don't know the answer to this, do they have to give approval prior to us, or is?
That's the normal procedure.
So the procedure that we put forth before the council said that both entities have to approve it. They're looking at some same, some similar features.
So it doesn't matter whether we approve or not, they would have to approve as well.
It does mention that it's to come before them first. And so I think the intent is for them to approve it first, but we've also allowed it to go in the reverse, maintaining the fact that both of them must approve it. So it did come before them, and they had a lot of questions of which he was able to share. I think the only, the composition is probably, and that may not be the right word, but just making sure that the artistic features are appropriate or whatever. It's not the elements in it or the concept that they have the issue with. They just didn't have a lot of this information, like this written information wasn't in the packet originally because we were just putting it together. And so they would need to come back and approve it. That, I think that would be acceptable, but this board must be ready to approve it first. Like it can't go any farther without this board's approval. Does that answer it? I didn't do very good.
Yes.
Okay.
I understand we have another gentleman who'd like to address us. State your name, please, and are you opposed to this, sir?
Absolutely not. I'm probably thinking this is a little bit redundant here since I see everybody shaking their heads north-south. I am Kurt Chakowski. I live at 1419 West Woodard. That's the same address as Alexander Sandy Atchison, the first doctor and former mayor of Denison. It's also the actual house that W.L. Peterson, who was the State National Bank president for 41 years, and we are lucky enough to live in his house here now. So I'm very familiar with the history and the historical process here. Now, we've called Denison our home for 44 and a half years, but in truth, I've only lived here for about since 2013, because the first 36 and a half years, I was in the United States military serving around the world, as it sounds like there's some other family members who's also, I am a United States Air Force Academy graduate. I didn't know that from Josh there. So like a president, he attended but didn't graduate then.
Nice try.
I was in the Air Force 36 and a half years, retired as Lieutenant General. I have a Master's of Science in Air Power History, and I'm here to give a background, but it doesn't sound like you need it anymore. If you'd like, Tuskegee Airmen, it was the experiment. It came about because of the findings of a 1925 War Department study that asserted that the Negro was fundamentally inferior to whites, and it concluded that Negroes lacked the intelligence, courage, and physical ability to operate complicated military equipment such as a combat aircraft. The term Tuskegee Airmen is not an official United States Air Force definition or United States Air Corps or Air Service system. It was invented by an author, Charles Francis, when he wrote a 1955 book with that same title. The Tuskegee Airmen Incorporated, which is a private organization, defines a Tuskegee Airman as anyone who involved in the Tuskegee Airmen experience in Alabama. July 19, 1941, there were 12 aviation cadets and 1 officer. Captain Benjamin O. Davis, Jr. became the first general officer, black general officer in the United States Air Force. By November of that same year, 4 cadets and 1 student officer demonstrated the necessary skills. They graduated in March of that year and then became the nucleus of the Red Tails, the Tuskegee Airmen Service, which is essentially the 332nd Fighter Group with its squadrons, the 99th, 100th, 103rd, and 104th pursuit squadrons. Jewel Butler graduated in September of 45, so he missed World War II. However, he was with the 99 Pursuit Group as that transitioned from the Army to the Air Force at Lockburn Army Air Base, became Lockbourne Army Airfield, now called Rickenbacker Air Force Base in Ohio. Tuskegee Airmen had 84 people who were died during World War II, 68 were killed in action, 32 were prisoners of war. They shot down 112 enemy aircraft, and they were the preferred unit to escort bombers in the 12th group, which was in Italy, coming into Nazi Germany from the south. They have 96 Distinguished Flying Crosses. That is the highest award a black airman was awarded during World War II. They have 3 Distinguished Unit Citations, which is the largest number that any aviation unit achieved. And 8 years ago, they were awarded a Congressional Gold Medal. July 26, 1948 is when President Truman, decided to integrate the services, and the 51st Fighter Interceptor Group was the first integrated Air Force unit composed of 60% black aviators, 40% white aviators. Of that 60%, more than 95% were Tuskegee Airmen, to include then Captain Jewel Butler. He served in Korea. Unfortunately, his records were in St. Louis at 1976. Those records were destroyed. However, the records that I do have provided from the family and what was left over in one drawer in the Air Force Historical Research Agency in Maxwell Air Force Base, Alabama, includes his diploma from Tuskegee, includes his Army service record, includes his Air Force service records showing that he served 22 years, 2 months, and 12 days, that he was awarded the 8 ribbons and or medals, both Army and Air Force, which you will see depicted on here. I will tell you, I am the military expert for that. I have researched the colors. The World War II colors are called pinks and greens. For those used with that type of history, they are the same colors of today. We provided photographs to the artist, so he has a great rendition. What you see up above here are the actual unit symbol. That's the 99th Fighter Squadron below the bottom right-hand corner. That is a true depiction of the P-47 with its red tail, red cowling color on there, and you can't see the spinner on there, but the spinner was white and black. So I will be the one to make sure the colors on the ribbons will be correct, and I'm helping Brian, Mr. Hander, to ensure that the bio includes the historical Tuskegee Airmen that everybody knows about with World War II, as well as moving into their service in Korea, and then in Mr. Butler, so far as the Air Force records will allow me to conclude. So, if there are any other questions about the military side.
Thank you very much, by the way. There was one detail that was still in the air, and that was, so to speak, and that was what woman was going to be painted on the plane. When will we know that?
I don't think there's a woman being painted on the
Okay,
airplane
I thought there was
itself.
something about the, tell me where I'm wrong then, Mr. Massey.
We don't intend to do any nose art graffiti.
Okay.
It'll be almost identical to what you see there.
Perfect, thank you.
As a historical fact, if I might,
Away from,
Exactly.
to me, the red tail is what is the
Thank
dream of an aviator. I mean, that's
Thank
what
you.
I want to stand out other than the human images.
So I reversed it when I read it, that you do not intend to put woman on the plane.
as a historical fact, black units were not allowed to put women in any sort of dress on their aircraft. They could put words on there, but not images. And that was because there was a fear of perhaps a political statement made, and so therefore they were denied that.
Well, I hope the nation's come a bit further since then.
We all hope that, sir, and we all can have a part in working that.
Kurt, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Might add that it pleases me to know that we had a member of the Tuskegee Air Corps from Denison here. And I'm even more pleased to know that there will be a mural put up on the wall in honor of that gentleman.
I think it'll complement Mr. Sullenberg very well.
Absolutely.
I think we can bend the rules a bit on the order in which things are done in this Dow. I don't want to be the one to hold things back, and I trust that the design committee will come up with a design that's appropriate. The elements are excellent, pretty well tell the story. One thing that I would like to see is there be a balance between the Eisenhower mural and this mural, so we don't have one overpowering the other.
As far as size, you mean?
Pardon me?
As far as size?
Yes, sir. It's just a matter of balance, that's all. The other thing I'm concerned about is the tree that's there, and I don't want to see a tree taken out, but I also don't want the mural covered up.
I can speak to that if there's time.
Certainly.
Off to the right of the image, what you can't see is that there is an easement for the alleyway between the truck and the building. I own that dirt. There is a ramp that allows for traffic to move. 3 department heads ago now, I think, there was a discussion where they would delete the entrance, which the previous owner of the building had stood fast on maintaining even after that new work was done,
Okay.
so that the grass would extend all the way to the entrance to the public parking. So I would forego my dirt entrance so that we can extend the grass. If that's the case, then they can transplant that tree into that space and open up that window.
Okay.
To the question about the size of the mural, we had intended to expand the distance twofold, twice width, for one particular reason, because if you shrink the image of the airplane down, it loses some of the magnificence of the story we're telling. So if you were to look at the size of the man, then he alone is actually going to be slightly smaller than the Eisenhower image to make up for the overcompensation of the ribbons and the airplane.
Well, I trust the design committee, working with you and other people, will come up with a satisfactory design and size, et cetera. So, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I move approval to paint the mural on the wall on Chestnut. Thank you.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There being none, the motion is carried.
Mr. Massey, my father would have been very proud to be here today. Everything you said would have made him very proud. Thank you, Coach Jess. That was really great of all of you. Thank you.
Thank you all for the trouble you've gone through to present this to us, and it was not a hard sell.
It took us 18 months to make sure we had the story right.
As soon as I saw the photograph, I was sold. Thank you.
All right, item G, receive report, hold discussion, and take action on a request for a new front door at 124 West Main, item 2022-18H. Ms. Dow?
So also during our streetscape project, we had a door as on the left side, the red door swings out. I don't know my proper terminology, but it's the left-hand part of it opens, and as you can see in the right-hand picture. And the ramp, that would swing into someone either walking up or in a wheelchair coming up that ramp. And so it wouldn't give them adequate space to move around. So we went to the property owner and said, this is kind of what we're facing here. So why don't we just swing it the other way? Well, it's not that easy. The ramp has to come from this way for different reasons. One, if it went the other way, it would go into a doorway on the other way, and there would be a steeper drop, a much steeper drop. So to shorten the distance to the maximum, it has to come from the west to the east. And so the path of least resistance, even though they have to change their door, that was the most insignificant move that we could make. And so they have chosen to change their door to something that they feel offers them better visibility. And I will let Mr. Oswald speak to this. But that's the situation. There will be rails that are installed on it, and provide for the safety. But this is just the door, and if you'll notice the color too, it's kind of a blackish brown color that's on the wall currently.
Where will the rails be placed on?
The side, you can kind of see the inset on the outside of the orange cones. There's a little corner piece there. So it would be placed at each corner. Yes. Well, there will be on the ramp side and the landing side also.
I'm just concerned about the height of that raised portion. Somebody came out of the building and walked off to the east. Is that going to be a substantial height?
It would be a step down, and so I'm not certain that there will be a barrier of some sort, but I'm not certain that it would be a step down or not. I know that I haven't seen the rail design.
That's kind of what I'm asking. Will there be a barrier that prevents somebody from walking off that side?
And I can't answer that. The door will swing that way. And that's the proposed door that they would like to use. Of course, it'll have the holes on the right-hand side. And then that's a historic photograph of the building with a similar door. And so I will let Mr. Oswald speak to you if you would like.
I'm Sam Oswald, the Executive Director of the Red River Railroad Museum. And so, yes, we're requesting a new door, and you can see the whines of it. We're so appreciative of the city, though, for putting that ramp, because we had steps prior that weren't that safe. So this is a big improvement, and we feel the door will be a big addition to it, too. So the swing, as she said, Donna said, is from the right to the left, with the hinges being on the left side. I was of the understanding, but I'm not official, that the railing would go all the way around it and then down the ramp, but I don't know. I would think so too. My concern would be people stepping off or backing off, or the wheelchair rolling. So,
I might say that the new door is an improvement over the older one.
I think so. I think more appropriate for the era. And it's a wood door, so we try to stay with the similar materials, and then painting it the darker color, as is the trim. I like the red muted tone as well, but I think this will be a good choice too.
All right, thanks, sir. Any discussion or questions?
I think as far as the railing, I think that's more of a city permitting issue. I don't really know. But I support the change of the door.
I have a motion.
I move that the door be replaced at 124 West Main.
I second.
All those in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I heard 2 ayes. Opposed? Opposed? There being none, the motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, item number 4, staff updates. Ms. Dow?
The only thing I wanted to share with you, last time we had the 421 case that came before us, and the awning or not to have an awning, and so she looked into some film, and so she's added film above the on the transoms, and I just wanted you to know that I'm doing some research on it to see how those will be handled, but we talked earlier about some items that may come before you, or, is it necessary or not. So she has added this film to the transoms, and she's going to add a clear film to the windows below. And so right now I'm still determining how other cities handle the film when they come. But I just kind of had these that were brought to me before that. This is a more reflective film, and so she's used this that's less reflective. But more on that later. I just kind of wanted to give you an update that at this point, she is not planning to add an awning.
No, I noticed myself driving down the street that she had removed the medallions from both sides on the transoms, and it looks great.
And Donna, so she doesn't intend to have an awning at all now?
That's my understanding. I'm sure she could change her mind and come back to you.
The windows
Of course.
will be all open.
Right, she's attempting to use, not this, but, the film to serve the same role as the awning would. He mentioned the windows, and below the medallion, the window on the east side was intact. And so what had happened on the west side was that they had put an air conditioning unit up there. And so probably removed, and she can't locate the new window or the old windows on the property, so they created one that matched, and that's what they did with that space. That's just an update on what occurred.
Thank you. All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Meeting is adjourned.